Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you happen to be. And I'd like to welcome you to actually what is the final recording of this amazing series. And I hope you've had a wonderful time going through what our experts have said so far. And I think what our next guest is going to add is going to be even more amazing and value adding. Now, our next guest is Nelson Corre, and I was just looking at his list of achievements, and they're so long. He's a conflict mediator. He's a certified mediator. He's a certified family business advisor. He specializes in family governance, and business family development. He has a master's degree from INSEAD. He's a partner of Concilium Family Office Advisors. He's a founder of the Brazilian Family Business Forum, and he's owner of Cedar Tree Family Business Advisors. And as though that weren't enough, also for 25 years, he was an executive in his family firm. And he was third generation member of that family. So how he manages to squeeze all of that into 24 hours, I am dying to ask him. So welcome, Nelson, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much. It's such an honor to be part of this legacy family business worldwide and very, very respectful program. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's been absolute pleasure. I mean, you know how much I've enjoyed talking to you anyway beforehand. As soon as we started, I realized that there was so much you could add to this program. So I'm delighted. So
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Nelson. I'm going to start with my usual first question is for me and for the audience. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, right? I mean, what brought you to where you are now, a little bit of your history and what was going on at different stages of your story.
Perfect. First, I think I have to go back in my 18 year when I was thinking to the idea, I was planning, my future was to graduate in business administration, then do an MBA, work outside the family business, and then come back to prepare to take over or to be part of the family member and work in my family company. But my story was completely deviated. My father didn't approve much more a lot about in terms of study. He wanted me to start working since I was a teenager. So the story, I left the university when I was 20 years old, and I started working for him in the family office of the company. And I was married very early. I got a son when I was only 24 years old. So I had many challenges when I was very young. And then after working for almost 25 years, since I think it was 1990 when I started, we did all the family governance in the company. Started from below, from being an internship, and taking over of sales, marketing, distribution. I was responsible for opening the company for exporting sugar. We were also the biggest importer of ethanol in the world. We were at the 10th largest company in the sugar sector around the mid-90s. So we did a lot of things that I was proud of, but in the end, I was not so fulfilled in terms of my role. I'm the oldest generation. I'm the oldest son of the third generation. I carry my father's name, and I was a lot of responsibility on my shoulders in terms of predestination on me to be the successor of the family business. And after a lot of struggling between me and my father, my brothers, in terms of who's going to take in charge, we decided to leave the role of executive, and everyone goes to the board. So after we spent through many years of governance and applying many tools in terms of succession programs, establishing the family office, the holding company, separating the family assets from the operational assets. So when I was being able to be more strategic in the company, my father decided to come back and take over the company when I was around 42 years old. So there was a crossroad in my life that I had to make a very tough decision. There was to stay there and become like the Prince Charles, or to be the protagonist of my own story. So I had to make my most difficult decision in my life. So I decided to leave the company. I'm only part of the family council now. And I started asking myself, what was my dream when I was a teenager? And I realized that I wanted to study. I wanted to first understand more about the family dynamics, then start working. So I come back to the school, I finished my graduation, then I went to INSEAD and did my master's degree there, where I had the chance to get familiar and get in touch with many family companies, bicentennial companies. That I was, and I realized like that was my passion. There was I wanted to educate, I wanted to prepare other generation to not suffer as me in terms of this process. So I started studying and certified as a family business advisors. I had many mentors. I did a lot of process in terms of coaching, and I prepared myself. And then I realized that there was a safe space in Brazil to exchange experience in terms of knowledge, content, and learn from other families. So I found, after I graduated from INSEAD, I found the Family Business Forum, the Brazilian Family Business Forum. So it's a platform of family business that we promote education and capacitation for heirs and family members all over the country. So this is my trajectory from a teenager, and then after I left the family business and I had to reinvent myself and become now on the other side of the table, a family business consultant. So I'm doing this for the last 7 years. Yeah.
Wow, what a story. What a story. And while you were talking, so many questions came to mind. I'd like to go back a little bit. Yes. One thing that really interested me was that it was predetermined. You were the oldest child, and therefore you would be groomed, and you spent a total of 25 years in the family business, starting as an intern and moving all the way up. Yes. So, and you said that right from the beginning, you felt this discomfort, if I can explain it, if I can put it like that, because there was a mismatch between what you had planned to do and how things actually worked out. So my first question is, what stopped you from saying to your dad, listen, Dad, this is not what I want?
At first, my ways of doing business was very different from my father's perspective and leadership. But that's okay. Now I understand that everyone has a different style. So we have to, of course, enhance, embrace, and respect the elder generation. But the things that I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to leave something to my son that was not to be in the shadow of my father. That's the discomfort that everything that I have done was not enough even to pledge my father. There was something that there's always something missing. Everything that for more struggling, more effort that I put, was not enough to please him. So when I started doing this transformational, let's say process in terms of knowledge in myself, knowing what I really wanted, I started realizing that the first moments, if I come back when I decided to study, I didn't want to study business. I wanted to become a lawyer. I wanted to study law. And I did that test in the beginning. And the first thing that appears was to study law. But my father, of course, didn't say, no, you have to study business administration, otherwise nothing matters. And you have to work in the family business because this is for you. And this is also something that I learned. It's never for you. It's for them. They are doing this for them. So there was a lot of struggling inside me in terms of what I really wanted to do in my life, in terms of becoming someone that I was proud of. And I was not proud, even that I was working very hard. I was doing incredible things in the family business. We achieved many goals in terms of growing the company, expanding, doing M&A, doing a lot of things that when my father started was a small business, let's say that. He grew the company, but I was able to help him with my international perspective. I studied English, so I couldn't. I lived abroad. I lived in the US. I studied in Switzerland, so I could give him a completely different perspective.
Right.
So the discomfort was much more about what I wanted to do with my life. I was not settled. Some probably other person that I talked to many other family members. They say some of them say, "Ah, you were crazy. You have everything. You have a job. You have a good salary, a big bonus. Why you want to leave?" But in the end, I was not happy. I wanted to do something for me to prove myself that I was able to conquer and to be the protagonist of my own story.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, there are two things that struck me quite strongly in what you just said. The first is that you had an idea. But I mean, we all do it, right? When we leave university and we're not really sure what we're going to do because we have very little experience on which to base our decisions on, right? But we have this kind of feeling about, well, I would like to be, lawyer, you mentioned. But then on top of that, your father was projecting his ambition on you, yes, and that's a powerful combination. On the one hand, you're a little bit uncertain. On the other hand, you've got this projection, and it's very easy to fall into that way of being. So okay, so you joined the family business. You obviously you did extremely well, and you transformed it. I think it'd be fair to say that you transformed it. So with the governance, because that's what you really specialize in now. How did you? And I mean, you're third gen, right? So how did you realize that this was the time to actually implement a governance framework? What was the trigger? Was there one thing, or was it just a general realization? How did that happen?
That's a good question because I come from a family business that they had from the first generation. They fought their brothers who built the company. My grandfather and his brothers. The company went apart, fall apart in the first generation. So they fought. They didn't get along in terms of decisions. There was not such a thing as governance at that time, in the early 50s. So my grandfather came from Lebanon when he was 12 years old with his other brothers, and so they started from scratch. And then they opened many branches. They started buying sugar companies. They had car sales. They had rice distribution. They have like a holding company. and each brother takes over, was in charge of a division. So they didn't get along, so the company split. Then came my father's generation. That was my father again with his 2 brothers and 4 sisters. And then after my grandfather's death, they decided to split only between their brothers. So they left the sisters from outside. So there was a big problem. They started fighting again. And then my father didn't get along as well with his brothers. So they fought again. So there was a pattern. There was a repetition of this family of a family dynamic that I didn't want to repeat in my generation.
Right.
So when my brothers start working in the company, and we again was facing different styles, each of us wanted to take the company in one direction. So I decided to bring the family governance on board. So I decided to ask for help. And there was many consultants that tried to help. The first we start doing in the wrong direction. We started from the succession plan. So my father was very young. He said, "Well, you guys wanted to kill me. What's going on?" So it didn't work. Then we brought another consultancy that was trying to prepare my brothers in terms of not working in the family company, but get prepared and get capacitation before. But didn't work because my father wanted everyone to be in the company. So there was always a confusion in terms of roles, in terms of rules, who do what, who can work in the company, what's the compensation for, what's going to be the distribution, the dividends in the end of the year, we're going to invest in the company, we're going to take the money. So I decided that it was time to bring expertise and help us to not us fight again. And what was very good. For a moment, we get along. We could specify the role of each other. We separate the assets. We create the holding company. We create the family office create the rule, the code of conduct of the family, mission, values. It was a long process. I'm talking about like a 10-year window that we get to start from scratch.
Sorry, can I ask you, Nelson, please to repeat the last? I think we had the last couple of sentences. We had a internet breakdown.
We had a.
No, I think we're frozen. You're frozen at the moment.
We had.
Okay, you're back, I think. No.
I said that we had a 10-year plan. Yeah, we had a 10-year plan in terms of doing from scratch and working until we finally put together the board, family, and the board, the company board. So it was a long process. Was a lot of learning, but my generation, we didn't fight. It was important that we get along. We understood the importance to bring these tools and to have an outside expert to help us going through this process.
Right.
So I learned a lot from the pain. How is difficult to implement a family succession plan in a family plan?
Yeah. So if I could just ask one more question on that process. What did you find the biggest challenges to be with your brothers, with your father, maybe with the rest of the family? I mean, coming to agreement on what should be in the governance documentation, let's say.
Yes. My father is more like kind of the family, is like kind of the founder, because my grandfather started, but my father started working with him when he was very young.
Mm-hmm.
So he was he has the profile of more like a kind of a narcissist founder.
Mm-hmm.
He's a lot of attached to power, to grow the company. He kind of confused himself as being the company father, the owner, the shareholder. So everything was him. So the challenge was to separate, to segregate the roles. And I think the most difficult challenge and mistake that if I may say, was to when we decided to form the board and take him out of the executive role, we didn't thought about a new role for him.
Right.
So he was very depressed in the end. He was very upset because he was very active in the company and doing things and shouting to everyone. So when these things was kind of smooth, was calm, he had to report to the board, he has to go to the meeting, and everyone has to share their view and which way we should take. So he was very upset. He didn't want to share. He wanted to take the decision by his view. So I think that the most difficult challenge was to separate these roles and to give him a new role that could be a new challenge for him. So if we could leave like a message or advice that before starting doing this, you need to think about what the founder should be doing in the next 10 to you have to make a plan for him.
Right.
So I think that was the most difficult challenge for us.
Yeah. And do you find that to be a common challenge in the families that you work with?
Yes, most of the companies that hired me is the second and third generation.
Mm-hmm.
They are the members who works in the company, and they are difficult to manage the relationship between father and son or father and daughter. So as I had been through this. I also wrote a book about this, about how important it is you become, as I always say, the protagonist, to be the owner of your story. You have to take the niche and say, no, I'm going to go in this direction. Nobody will interfere in terms of, as you mentioned, predeterminate my destiny. I own my destiny. So
right.
So I think it's very common, yes, to answer your question, because in Brazil, most of the companies are very young. Here, different from the US and Europe, we don't have many companies that achieve after third generation, also 100 years old. So we are talking about companies in the average of 24, 25, 50 at the most years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So here we face this poor statistics that only 3-4% of the family business pass the third generation.
Mm-hmm,
so it's not like US that is 30, 13, 3.
Right.
US is like kind of more one generation ahead of us.
Right.
And of
right.
course, Europe and Asia is more. They are very. We are talking about 200 years old,
right.
400 years old,
right.
1,000 years old family companies.
So okay, so what is the reason for this? I mean, is there a cultural influence on this? I mean, what have you experienced that makes Brazilian family businesses different? And why this this gap, if you like, this difference in longevity?
Good question. I believe it's cultural, yes, because
Mm-hmm.
Brazil is kind of a multi-pot in terms of there are many cultures here.
Right.
We had the Portuguese that came, then we had the Italians that substitute the slaves, then start coming the Germans, Japanese, Lebanese. So we kind of mixed, and there are many different countries in the same country. For example, the North is completely different from the South.
Right.
But in the end, what rules is the culture. And the culture is very similar that we've seen in the Japanese families, in the Italian families, in the Lebanese families. And if you take an example for example, family companies that are located in the south of Brazil, they are much easier to work because they have a German mentality.
Oh,
They're
okay.
straightforward. They look much more. They want to segregate things. They want to organize. They're very organized. Completely different from companies from the north. So you have to understand the local culture. And of course, Brazil is still, I can say, a paternalist structure.
Right.
Patriarch.
Yeah.
The founders are very attached still to power. There's a lot of segregation in terms of women taking charge in Brazil. That's one of my voice that I'm putting a lot of efforts to equalize, to bring women on board in terms of family board, in terms of roles as an executive. So I think the culture in the end talks a lot. And of course, we are still very young in terms of family governance. In Brazil,
Right.
we're talking since we are 20 years from now. It's not something that everyone is. If you take a research, I think 83% of the companies in Brazil still didn't have any kind of shareholders agreement.
Wow.
So it's a
83.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a gap. Of course, there is an opportunity here to work, to prepare the next generation to come, and to allow them to enter in the family business, prepare, and to face this challenge of overcome the succession
Right.
challenge.
Yeah. How interesting is that? I mean, as you know, we have speakers from around the world, and this is a question I love hearing the answer to, because there is a cultural aspect, I think, that we cannot afford to ignore,
Yes.
that will influence the whole process in so many ways. So thank you for sharing that. So if I can just go back, because there's one question before we move on, and go back to your family business. You mentioned you had two brothers, is that right?
Two brothers and one sister, yes.
And one sister. Are all three of them involved in the family business still?
Only one.
Only one.
Others left.
Okay. Okay. All right. And how's the business doing now? It's thriving, etc. Your father is leading where he feels comfortable.
When my father came back, the company suffered a lot. We lost many talents.
Mm,
Many people that was part of my team was dismissed. So there was a conflict between my style and then my father's style.
right.
So the company struggled for a few years. Now it's kind of, he's older now. And now he's facing the challenge to professionalize the company again. So now he's asking, he just hired a new executive, outside executive. So he's kind of leaving the executive to work and to form a new team.
Right.
So it's a new challenge of the company. The company, I think, is going to grow a lot again because marketing is looking with a good perspective in terms of they're professionalizing the company. They're forming a board. So things that you know that the marketing wants to hear. You need to have a story. You need to have a 10-year, 20-year plan, because if there's an investor or there's money come on board, they want to know what's the plan, what's the succession plan, who's going to take charge if your father dies, how is the shareholders agreement, what's the rules here, who works, who does the work, how is the compensation. So these things has to be written and has to be, of course, reviewed. a 5 years plan, but
Right.
you need to have these things done.
This continuity, this common thread. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Okay, so here you are. You've decided to leave the family business, be the architect of your own future, the protagonist of your own future, and yet you don't go into law. Yeah, you go into family business. Now, this is interesting. You know, why?
I started studying law, but in the end, I realized that the law that I wanted is more kind of a mediation and to
Right.
help other families. So I started studying much more about family dynamics, family conflict mediation, conflict resolution, and family governance. So I believe that as not being a lawyer, I have a different perspective from being part of a family business company, family business owner and member, that I can help them to overcome their challenge from like let's say a 45,000 feet view. So I specialize myself in a psychodynamic approach in organizational behavior. That this tools is much more can help much more than if I would just going to study the law.
Right.
So of course, I deal with succession plans in terms of law, but I work with many lawyers. But I think I became a lawyer in practical, but not study the law. But something that maybe someday I come back to study law.
Well, I tell you, you have to find some extra space on your CV because it's long enough already, Nelson. I don't know. You're going to have to put another couple of sheets on it. It's amazing. So now you're working with family businesses, right? And I'm sure there are some who get it, right? Who understand the idea of the story, who understand the importance of governance and so on. And then I'm sure that there are some who don't, and that's why you are there to take them through this process. So can you share one or two examples of companies who did it well or not so well, and what happened?
We think we have a emblematic family here in Brazil that probably was one of the most richest family in the world.
Wow.
Matarazzo family. He was an immigrant, Italian immigrant that came, and he made an empire. And then in the third generation, the second generation was they said was the count, but he was a count. He decided to take all his family members in terms of his sons outside the company and gave all the shares to his daughter. That she was not prepared. She didn't expect that, and she had to handle a discussion between their brothers, many lawyers, and all the companies falling apart. So that's I think in Brazil and probably in the world, one of the best examples of the lack of family governance and how important was if they decided to implement these tools before the count died.
Right.
So that was I studied that. I read many books of the family. There's a very interesting how they could manage differently in terms of succession planning. And of course, there are many examples here in Brazil of families that are doing very great that I can share. There's many families in the north, like the Primeira, that have a huge in terms of sugar, cement, hotels. They are very respect one another. They implemented the family governance. We have the Setúbal that owned the Itaú Bank here, the biggest Latin American bank. They're international as well. They invest a lot in family governance. You had the Votorantim family I think this is the best example in Brazil. One of the biggest companies here, they left many companies in terms of cement, distribution. And they're family members that work there. There are the families that are doing their role in the market, working in different areas. But they get together every time, once a year, to share the family values. Who was the founder, and to pass to other generations the values from the founder. So that there are many beautiful stories here in Brazil that worked because of family government. That's the beauty.
So it's taking hold. People are starting to get it. It is now forming part of the culture of the family business environment, from what I hear. And that's wonderful. It's because, as we both know, family businesses contribute so much to every economy in which they're present, and they're present around the world. And it's in everybody's interests that that they are well governed and well run, and so before, unfortunately, we're going to have to wind up soon. But just one last question around when you decided to make the move from your family business. What was the reaction of other members of the family? How did they feel about that? Was it difficult for them to accept?
Yes, it was a difficult time. I spoke, of course, had this conversation, very transparency. I had this conversation with my father many times that I wanted to do my thing. I wanted to study. I wanted to help other families. I wanted to shine. I wanted to be someone that I was proud of. My son was proud of. So I also protect a lot my son, that I wanted him to graduate. He now studying. He studied and formed in sociology in the United States. He's venture capital. He has his own vehicle, venture capital. He's doing great. So he was the first generation to be able to graduate and go outside without struggling. So they say that only the fourth generation you can cut the let's say the emotional
Cord.
Or yes. So my brothers didn't have the same not facility, but I prepared a lot for that moment.
Right.
I was already having these discussions with me and have access to mentors, to coaching process, psychologists, and to give me the impulse, the strength to move forward.
Right.
So my brothers didn't have the same, I think, capacitation, let's say. It's, some of them, one is not so good. It's kind of a back and forth. One decided to stay, the younger. Now he's working with my family, but he's not happy. So he's struggling, and I know what he's suffering, but he's not able to cut the cord. So I think you have to respect it. It's a process.
It is.
Depend on everyone. So you need to respect. Is their own process, right? So you can't push, because everyone has his own evolution here on Earth.
Absolutely.
You can help them to prepare themselves, but they need to face their own challenges.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. I mean, because we're talking about very deep issues. We're talking about psychology. We're talking about culture. We're talking about history. We're talking about planning for the future, whatever that may bring. I mean, it's a very complex set of moving parts, and that's why I'm so passionate about legacy family businesses.
That's true. Two of us.
Yeah, this is what we definitely have in common. So let's suppose I'm a member of the audience listening to this, and I say, I like what Nelson has to say. So how do you work? Who do you work with? typically, how does it start, that relationship?
Yes, first I have this family business platform that I promote events for education, capacitate family members, founders. So we had these forums to put everyone together to discuss, to have access to different experience, to network, and to have access to huge content. So we bring experts to discuss the family business issues. So we are the main reference in Brazil in terms of family business platform. And talking about that, there's many families that ask about my help in terms of advising, in terms of forming their own family office, in terms of mediating conflicts,
Right.
Implementing family governance. So I work with many other experts, so we kind of form a team. So this depends on the issues of each family that ask my help. So I'm working with different families for the last 7 years. It's been very beautiful in terms of learning. I learn a lot because every family has their own DNA, has their own challenge.
Right.
But in the end, it's the same issues.
Right.
It's much more about relationship, how they handle the relationship, and can understand why they act like they act. You understand their patterns and how when they become conscious about why they are doing that, it's become very easier to help them
Shift.
to shift and build their path.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, nothing changes until first we have an awareness of the need to change,
Self-awareness is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically anyone, and you don't only work in Brazil, is that right? You especially now in COVID times, everyone's talking like this. So I guess you could work with clients outside Brazil as well.
Yes, I did some speeches outside in Latin America, in Panama, in some companies in Latin America. But of course, now it's much easier because of the internet. We are working everywhere, anywhere.
Right.
So
okay.
I'm available to help everyone. Of course, I have not so much time because you need to work with a few families per year. But of course, the idea is to be like an international hub.
Wonderful. Excellent. So it doesn't matter this is to the audience. It doesn't matter where you are. Give Nelson a call, and I'm sure he'll be able to guide you one way or the other. I understand before we sign off, Nelson, I understand that you have a free gift for our audience.
Yes, I would like to offer a 30-minute mentorship with me. First participant that you leave my email with Ashim, and then if you'd like to talk about your role, about this transformation, this process, I'm here to help. And once more, I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity and congratulate you about this fantastic program that you're putting through all these experts all over the world. And I hope that can help many families in their succession planning and leave their legacy, perpetuate their legacy for the next generation.
Yes, thank you so much, Nelson, and you have certainly contributed hugely to that process. Just in, of course, I'll share your email address with the audience, but would you like to share it now as well, so that if someone's just listening, they can write it down?
It's Nelson Curry, CURY at fbfe.com.br.
So Nelson Curry at FB for Bertie, FE for Echo. Is that right?
Family Business Entrepreneurship Forum. So it's F as Frank, B as bike, F as Frank, E as
Echo.
Echo. fbfe.com.br.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you again for your time, Nelson. A pleasure speaking with you, as always. And we look forward to lots of people getting in touch with Nelson. He's the man to speak to for pretty much anything, especially in South America.
Thank you. I enjoy, and I hope I can help other families as well.
I'm sure you certainly have, Nelson. Thank you again. Goodbye for now.